Hi, I'm Ingenious with an Ingenious approach to selling, and I'm going to show you some of that approach right now. So I typically get invited in by ambitious businesses that are frustrated that prospective clients obsess over the price of the service. They become increasingly demoralized how many precious hours are wasted in discovery calls that fizzle out. They're sick of hearing that dreaded sentence at the end of another 40-minute discovery call. That line, what we're going to do is have a think about it, knowing full well they're going to vanish. Knowing that the business had the perfect solution to the client's problem, only to have their help rejected as soon as the price got brought up. And it probably isn't every time, but if they had 10 discovery calls a month and 3 clients said yes, then that's effectively 7 clients that have said no. That's 7 no's a month. 7 extra spending clients that they couldn't afford to lose. Even if their service was only, say, £1,000, that's £7,000 of extra business they're missing out on. So why? Why are clients obsessing over price? Well, one of the reasons that clients obsess over price is that they don't understand. They don't understand how your solution solves their problem. And if they don't fully understand, that means they're guessing. And they don't really want to guess for money, right? So the problem is clients don't understand. They don't understand how your solution solves their problem. But it's worse than that. They don't think they've even got a problem. So now it doesn't matter if they understood how your solution solves their problem because they haven't even got a problem. And you know you can't help an alcoholic that's not willing to admit they're an alcoholic. So it doesn't matter that you can see they've got a problem until they realize they have a problem and they own the problem. Nothing's going to change. But let's say they knew they had a problem and they owned the problem, but they didn't think their problem was very bad. They didn't understand the severity of their problem. They didn't understand the size of their problem. You could see that their problem was terrible. You could see that effectively their arm was about to fall off. However, they believed they just had pins and needles. Now, it doesn't matter that you can see their arms about to fall off. If they think they've got pins and needles, their problem is just a mild inconvenience. And no one is going to pay a lot of money for a mild inconvenience. So it comes down to understanding. Do they understand they've got a problem? Do they own the problem? Do they understand how bad that problem is? And if they do understand they've got a problem and they do understand how bad it is, do they understand how your solution solves it? If any one of those is broken, they're not going to pay you. Now they're having to guess, is it worth me doing? I don't know. Then most people are not going to guess for money. So that's one of the reasons they don't understand. Okay, so does this seem reasonable? To make a good choice, you need to understand the choices. Now, this isn't related to sales. This is just related to choices. If you were going to choose a holiday, would you like to know more about the holiday location, more about the transport, more about the food, more about the activities around? Yeah, you'd want to. So to make a good choice, you need to understand what the choices are. So it's now key that clients understand. And how do you check understanding? We ask questions. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Is that clear? I hope that's clear. I hope you understand. Questions of that ilk. So think to yourself, do you ask questions to check your client's understanding? Yeah, I say, do you understand? Does that make sense? There is one slight problem. There is only one answer to the question, does that make sense? Because the answer is yes. Because the other answer is no, I'm thick. Now, most people don't like putting their hand up and going, I'm a bit thick, I don't get it. Most people would rather say, yes, that's absolutely clear, I get that, rather than expose their stupidity. Now, maybe, let's say you're the sort of person who says, that's not me, Ian. I am very brave. marginally confrontational, very brave, and I would say, I don't quite get that. Can you explain it more clearly? Right? So if you've got experience of working with people in IT, SEO, mortgage advice, they suddenly go, yes, sorry, let me make it a little clearer. And they do for a moment. The subject becomes very, very easy. And then very, very quickly, very rapidly, it gets far, far too complicated. And then they ask the even more moronic question, does that make sense now? What, and they thought you were going to put your hand up again and say, no, I'm still too stupid to get it. This time what you'll do is a piece of acting going, thank you very much for explaining it so clearly. That really helped. And what you're really thinking is, please God, don't ask me another question. I've absolutely got no idea what you're talking about. So the question, does that make sense, doesn't make any sense. And again, let's not worry about the words. Does that make sense? Is that clear? Do you understand? The same. It's the same answer. It's a completely pointless question. Now, you could think that your subject was a little bit more complicated and build that into your question. So you could say, have I explained it clearly? Have I explained it clearly would indicate that you knew it was a moderately difficult subject, so you were giving them permission to get out of this horrible mess. The problem is, even though you meant it in the best will in the world, have I explained it clearly? They've got to say, no, you've explained it like a prat. And no one's going to say that. If they were unlikely to say, no, I don't get it, they're extremely unlikely now to say, no, you've explained it like a prat and I don't get it. Questions are flawed. So to make a good choice, clients need to understand. They need to understand the problem they've got. They need to understand how bad it is. They need to understand how you solve that problem. To check understanding, you ask questions. Unfortunately, all the questions are fundamentally flawed. You could even say, have you got any questions? But we've all been in meetings where we've got a question. We're not going to put our hand up. One, it exposes our stupidity. Two, it exposes that we possibly weren't listening because they might have already answered that question 30 seconds ago. So we say, no questions. And then someone else puts their hand up over there and you think, thanks very much for asking that, mate. I was thinking the same thing. Questions are flawed. So how do you get round the problem? They need to understand and you can't ask any questions. Make it so simple you don't need to ask any questions. But I make it simple and they still get it wrong. Simple isn't simple enough. I've got a degree in mathematics, so simple for me is A-level. But what if you haven't done A-level maths? What if the furthest you got was GCSE? It's simple, it's not simple enough. Right? You're the expert, they're the beginner. If they don't understand it, is it the beginner's fault for not understanding, or is it the expert's fault for not making it easy enough? Has to be the expert's fault for not making it easy enough. It's our job to ensure that they understand, not their job to try and understand it. So what is the benchmark to make sure that someone understands? Well, at the age of 6, a child has got 1 year of maths and 1 year of English under their belt. So if you were to make it so simple a 6-year-old child would get it, that's your lowest common denominator. You're never going to sell to someone of the age of 6. I'm guessing that all your clients are over the age of 6. So if that's the case, if you could make it so easy that a 6-year-old child would understand it, you never need to worry whether an adult understands it. So what would you say, if you're explaining your services to a 6-year-old child, what words would you swap? What jargon would you remove? What extra stages in your explanation would you put in? What simpler numbers would you use? Think, what would I have said to a 6-year-old child? Now, some of you maybe have a 6-year-old child, a 9-year-old child, a 14-year-old child. Why not tell them one thing you do and get them to try to explain to you what they thought they understood? Now, obviously, you can't explain your service. You go to meet a managing director of 4 businesses. He's got 17 locations, 4 Ferraris. He's got a lot of money. You can't speak to him as if he's a 6-year-old child because you will insult his integrity and his intelligence. So suddenly they need to understand. How do you make sure they understand? You can't ask questions. You make it 6-year-old simple, but you can't make it 6-year-old simple because you're going to insult their integrity. Let's imagine I was doing websites. I'm sure you've had lots of conversations with businesses that can sort out websites. Is it okay if I just explain how my service differs from the competition, just using extremely easy language, removing the jargon, just using some very simple examples. It just makes it easier for me to explain. Where have I put the stupid? I've put the stupid on me. The person then doesn't have a problem. They'd have to say, no, Ian, I want to see you struggle. Is it okay if I make it simple? Just use extremely easy examples, very simple language. It makes it a lot easier for me to explain. They're not going to say, no, I want to see you struggle. It works for any subject. Chances are they will have spoke to other people. I'm sure you've had lots of conversations with businesses that get involved with HR. Is it okay if I just explain how my services differ? Just using extremely easy jargon-free language, very simple examples. It just makes it easier for me. They say yes, and now you can get away with murder. You can take it back to 6-year-old simple. So you can use words, examples, numbers that they do understand. They now understand the problem they have. They now understand the severity of the problem, and they now finally understand how your solution solves their problem. So hopefully that was some use. It's not about getting better at selling. It's about making it easier to buy. I show businesses how to turn no's into yeses and yeses into much better yeses by helping clients make better informed choices. Businesses that work with me typically gain around 17 extra spending clients a year from the same number of conversations by turning no's into high ticket yeses. So if you're frustrated that discovery calls fizzle out, if you're gutted about being ghosted, hearing what we're going to do is have a think about it, knowing they're going to vanish, if you're sick of settling for low ticket yeses, they say yes to you, but they always take the bronze. They always take 1 out of 5. Or maybe your clients are signing up and they're taking everything you recommend, but you don't feel you're charging what your service is truly worth, then drop me a message. I'm real easy to find on LinkedIn. I am Ingenious with an Ingenious approach to selling.